Hi, hello. And in today's video, I will be doing how to color. The way I usually would do this is by doing it myself, which I do it myself, but I thought it'd be fun and easier for me to explain if I showed incorrect coloring first. So, that is what we're gonna do. I got some volunteers to color for me. This colored image I made. No, I did not make the background. I was being lazy. No, I was being lazy. This was for an experience. Well, not for an experience. I might make actual coloring pages where I actually do the backgrounds, but for now, yes, this is okay. And I know you're looking at this colored picture, and an almost 19-year-old colored that. But let's start at the most obvious thing that is screaming and crying at me, which is the coat just randomly turns gray. Which, if you're doing a split colored clothes where it's half one clothes, half another clothes, that's one animal. If you just forget that you colored something gray, that's a completely different animal. Along with the red was actually a nice red. The shoes decently done. The legging color is nice. The eyes weren't colored. The skin's a decent color. I'm not gonna say anything. The yellow actually ties in nice with the red. Yellow and red just I don't know how to explain it. They go together. This is gonna be a lot of me just saying, oh, I don't know how to explain it. They just do. Because for me, coloring is more like an instinct. Whenever it feels good in my gut, I just do sort of deal than a oh, this is what color theory is. But for this, another thing that I would say is the grass. Okay, there's two different colored flowers, and they're in two different areas, which is fine. But then the grass is two different colors. In the middle, it's gray green, and up front, it is green. Why? I don't know. It doesn't look like the grass is in a place where there's lots of grass together. Usually they mix, or usually a little bit, so that there's usually not a stark line, especially within nature. Unless there's a natural reason for it or whatever. Usually within nature, things gradient one off from the other. So when you're coloring something, and let's just say, oh, you want this part of the grass to be lighter, you have to think of the reason. Was there a pot left there, and that's where there's a stark line of dead gray grass or brown grass, or is it there are drought and patches of grass are slowly dying, so there'd be more of a gradient. Also, overusing I use saturated colors when I color, but overusing certain saturated colors can, even for a more saturated style, just not be ideal. So for this drawing in particular, the way the sky is, especially because it's not even a sky, it's a train. The way the train is it kind of makes your brain trick you into being a sky, which is fine. I kind of did that with my version, but then the top of it's just gray. It's not very coordinating. All of these colors don't really make. It's not even that they only not make sense, because not all colors need a real rhyme or reason to exist. They just need to exist, and they just using colors within the same tones, which that doesn't even mean only using blue and green, and that means instead of using this as an example, there's that gray green to me is more of a cooler green. than the green used at the purple flowers, which kind of throws it off. If there was a darker or more gray, cooler green, I think it'd look more cohesive, along with the fact that like a lot of these, it's like using cool colors but also kind of using warm colors. The gray up in the very top left corner is very, like, it's a purpley, which is fine because it is on the cooler side, but it's right next to this blue, when a blue gray probably would have made it look more cohesive along with the fact that the brown used for the like rails is a like dark warm brown, when it probably should have been more cool tone brown if brown were to be used. The yellow was a nice pop because not all the colors have to be cool toned. It's just wisely putting the colors of what you don't want, or what the different colors are in certain places. And for the patch of orange, I don't even want to comment. And also the reason I'm roasting this is because I know the person who colored it does not care very much. I know he doesn't care. If he watches this, hi. For the orange blob, it's very desaturated as well, and it does not, there's no, other than maybe the browns, there's no other color that goes with it. And it's a strange choice saying that all of, like, you probably could have carried the purple flowers over to make it more, like, cohesive. The one thing about this drawing is that it's the colors are very everywhere. So yeah, that is everything wrong with this one, and the advice I give to improve. On to the second one. My second victim. Okay. This one is a lot more cohesive. I appreciate that. It's also not as chaotic. Much appreciate. And there's shading, which is neat. I don't really like, I mean, you were going for like a dreamy thing, right? Okay. It's supposed to be very like dream-like, so the colors aren't realistic, which they don't have to be. In this case, he used opposite colors on the color wheel. So when opposite colors tend to look nice together, especially, they don't always have to be 100% opposite. Sometimes it's generally close enough. Like purple and orange aren't exactly opposite on the color wheel, but they look nice together because orange is just close enough to being yellow. It looks nice. Same thing with purple and green. Orange and blue are exact opposites, but orange and purple looks good together is also a good thing. It's also not super as like whoa. It's like how like green and pink look good together for the same reason, and it doesn't scream. Red and yellow look good because yellow's next to green, but you know, they're so cross enough from each other that they're different enough and they look good together. This one doesn't. Everything is very light. There's not like a, what's it called? Like pop out colors. Like in the other one, my first volunteer used a lot of everywhere, and this one uses not a lot of everywhere. I would say, like, I guess one thing is more or less of a, like, maybe not like a little bit more of somewhat of a variety, because even though, because you stayed, or volunteer 2 stayed very strictly to the color palette he chose, which is usually that's a good thing, but sometimes just putting in like a little bit more of a variation and not always like doing, or not going everywhere and not using like the same colors, because and sometimes it even helps using like different tones of colors and along with other things. But yeah, that's really all I have to say about my 2 victims. And now on to the speed paint of mine. Hi, so this is the section where I talk about my own coloring. So this is just the speed paint of the coloring part to make all of our lives easier. So for this, I decided to do more of a cool tone to kind of get that sort of like white light effect, because I don't know, even though light is white, it's like a cool white, like more like a blue white. That's what I mean by like cool toned white. For like the like sterile blinding lights in like stores and lots of public places. So I used a cool green, and then to contrast that cool green, I used a yellow for the flowers, so that because they're just far enough away on, because I used a more blue green, the yellow is kind of close to orange, so it makes the yellow and the green really pop. And for the train walls, I did use a blue. I kept on going back and forth on what kind of blue. At first I used the like more saturated blue, and then I put an orange stripe to like, or like yellow stripe to like bring in more of that yellow color to like pop. I also used a more, not as an intense red, but I did use a red to help, because red and green are opposites on the color wheels, which means that they work together really well, and I didn't think it was gonna scream Christmas. For the hair, everybody basically did the same thing. Brown, because brown usually for hair, it's not an offensive color. It's not gonna offend anything. Brown generally goes with everything, at least for like hair and like skin and stuff. It'd be For this, I wanted to make sure I did the one accent color I did technically use was red, because it's so little, but I tried to put sprinkles of red throughout the character design to make sure there was still some sort of cohesion. I used mostly cool colors with the grass and the walls, and I used pops of it is in the gold stripe that goes up and down the bus railway, and the flowers and the chairs to like accentuate those things I wanted to accentuate out of the cool, which I didn't want, or I used to kind of like fade away. I used to keep everything. I used a warm brown for the hair color, and I used a kind of cool dark red. Yeah, I know, cool red. It's more like a pinky red, purpley red for the coat, so that would go together. I also put a red, I think it's a flannel pattern, on the skirt to help spread it around, even though it's hard to see. I also added in some shading for funsies, but generally what I tried to do was make sure there were colors that stood out but also kind of went with each other. So in that case, the blue wall goes with the like cooler blue-green grass. The yellow of the flowers goes with the yellow of like the accent paint stripe on the train wall. That red also kind of ties into the like orangey yellowy color that I used for kind of the flowers and the thing, because well, red and yellow make orange, so they tie together. I tried to make sure to tie it in with the character design by making the brown more of a warm red auburny brown rather than a cooler, more like gray toned brown. And with the shirt, with the coat, I already said I used a cool red so that it still kind of goes nicely with the blue, because it's desaturated and kind of taken down a notch compared to the red seats, but they're not. But it's still red, so it still kind of goes with it. It also doesn't really too terribly melt into the seat, which colors is okay for sometimes, depending for colors to melt into each other. That isn't necessarily a cardinal sin, but yeah, that is how to generally color. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, you should subscribe. If you want any more tutorials, comment. I might make this an actual like coloring page and like do the background for real. instead of just being lazy. So if I do that, it'll be on my Discord server, which is in the link description, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.